Hello, sisters. Welcome to the season two of the Rising Feminine Online Temple, which is a 7 days initiation for women to journey back to their true essence. My name is Jonita D'Souza, your feminine lifestylist, and also the keeper of this online temple, where I have gathered visionaries from around the world to join forces and initiate you in your authentic feminine. A big part of my work as a feminine lifestylist is to invite women to indulge into everyday rituals so that you can feel more nurtured, nourished, and fulfilled in your daily busy lifestyle. So, as part of this online temple, I am inviting you to create a sacred container. Maybe light a candle, grab your journal, give yourself this time for yourself to receive the offerings of the teachers of this online temple space because each one of them have a very special message for your initiation. Joining us today is Anaiya Sophia, where she will be sharing about fierce feminine, discerning, and surviving predators. And I could not have invited a better person than Anaiya, having followed her work for so many years and experiencing her transmissions as well. But before we begin our conversation, I'd like to read a little bit about Anaiya so that you can have an idea of the sacred work that she does. So Anaiya Sophia is an independent mystic of an almost forgotten faith, author of 7 books, and a teacher of Kundalini Yoga. She carries an oral transmission from the sacred feminine mysteries, which she weaves into all of her work. Her books include Open Your Heart with Kundalini Yoga, Pilgrimage of Love, Womb Wisdom, which I have read, Sacred Sexual Union, The Rose Night, Sacred Relationships, and Fierce Feminine, one woman's journey to find her authentic voice. Anaiya lives in the Occitan region of southern France with her beloved husband Pete Wilson. Together in union with the land, they take people on their own grail quest into an immersive interaction where an initiation by the feminine principle is almost always guaranteed. They also run a B&B where individuals and small groups can come and stay and experience their magic. Welcome, Anaiya.
Oh, thank you so much, Johnny. Beautiful to meet you.
Yes, I'm so excited to speak with you and to be like directly interacting with you in person in this in conversation. I'm so excited because I have been following your work and your transmissions, and I truly receive the energy that you give in your sacred work. So thank you so much for being present here as well.
Oh, thank you.
Before we begin, before I jumped onto this call, I did a small meditation and pulled up a goddess card just to tune into our conversation and inviting the goddess to be present with us today in our talk in this temple space. And I want to share with you this card. So the goddess Ishchil,
Okay.
the medicine woman, came into, yeah, she came out for us. And I think she talks about that you are a medicine woman, you're a healer, you are a channel for divine healing power, pretty much. So so I was wondering, like, wow, this is so apt for our conversation today and also for your sacred presence. And I want to ask or check in with you if you feel any resonance with this goddess at this point in this moment.
Yes, absolutely. I'm definitely being drawn into another part of me being made available simply by life being lived through me. So it's almost as if my days of sacred sexuality is diminishing, and that my days of discernment and awareness are increasing. So I notice very obviously I'm on a very particular journey. Different qualities of the feminine are working alongside and around me now.
That's interesting. So our topic today is also quite similar to what you're saying right now, discerning and surviving predators. And
Yeah.
I feel that with so much of spirituality and all this new age work going around, there is so much present that we need to understand and use this power that we have within ourselves. And I'm so excited to know your perspective on it.
Hmm. Yes, it's like I'm giving word now to the intuitive system that was running all along. When I was a much younger lady, I seemed to override my intuition. I tried to edit it or minimize it to suit my will. But what I'm noticing now is that the intuitive system of a woman is one of her greatest sacred gifts. And whenever she's in dangerous waters or a threatening environment, her intuitive self will be absolutely speaking. And it's so important that we tune back into that voice and act accordingly. So discernment is a quality that the feminine has more of because of her intuition. And as she awakens and opens her sexuality and her beautiful sacred heart presence, then it's almost like the masculine in her appears as discernment. But if that is not there, if she really is this free-flowing Shakti with no inner masculine presence, it's only a matter of time before she lands in dangerous and deep water.
That's so true. And I have realized that we have a tendency to go into extremes. You know, if we're doing the feminine work, most women go into the extremism of feminine work, and like we are too much in the flowy and, free flowing, as you say, and then we tend to forget and coming from a too much of a masculine space. So, we like the extremes, looks like.
We have to be careful that we don't think that our masculine part is controlling. It's not about control. It's not about any form of tension or hardness. So we can keep our flow, but inward, there are inner eyes and inner ears, paying attention to the environment, to the person you're interacting with. And in a very loose and feminine way, you're just discerning, you're navigating. Is this good for me? Is this not good for me? Okay, it's not good. I shall withdraw. I think the Western world tries to tell us that masculine energy is controlling and abruptive and unmoving and unyielding.
Yeah. And the logic,
Yeah. Very stubborn, very straight. No, that's not it.
No. So what do you mean when you say fierce, fierce, feminine? And I'm really curious about the use of fierce twice in this phrase that you use.
Well, I think I really needed to emphasize that fierce part, because it's like no, I'm really being serious. I'm not just using a tagline, fierce feminine. That's everywhere these days. Fierce feminine. I'm being really serious. I want us all to pay attention. There is a quality of feminine expression that is needing to come through the feminine amongst us. That doesn't mean women. So it's kind of like an outcry, an outrage. It's a expression towards all the atrocities and injustices that are happening all around us.
Yeah.
It might not be word. It might not be our mother tongue. It might just be pure sound or gesturing or some sort of enactment. We might just like lie down on the floor and just refuse to allow the warheads on lorries to reach their destination. So it's those who are willing to actually stop these things from continuing to happen. And this can be anything from inappropriate spiritual teaching to inappropriate pay for women to inappropriate sharing of food and water to the whole of mankind. We read it on the news. We know what's happening, but another step needs to be taken, and that is some kind of embodied step.
Yeah, and really owning that in ourselves as well.
Yes.
So I'm really curious to ask you, how did you begin this sacred journey? Where did it all start for you? If you can share with us a little bit about it.
Well, I always tell my story of meeting a beggar on the steps of the Sacre-Cœur in Paris when I was 12 years old. So that was definitely a heart-opening, soul-to-soul turning point, which I feel awakened my spiritual energy. And from that moment on, I was a little girl that was always destined to live some kind of spiritual component. So that was a turning point. But in recent years, in these last 8 years, that very soft and gorgeous sacred heart presence has definitely turned into what I'm calling now this fierce feminine. And I guess that was by meeting a predator, meeting a person who carried strong predatory energy, and asking myself, what the heck was that?
Mm.
I couldn't decipher what this kind of character was. I'd never met anything like that before. And then I realized, oh, it's everywhere. There's quite a few characters like that.
Mm.
Energy, it's called narcissism or psychopath. So it is something that's quite well established in all of our communities.
Yeah, and I think often in relationship, women go through this as well. Like we meet a partner, and many times it's also an internal mirror and reflection of what we haven't claimed inside of us. Because I know for myself, before to my marriage, I was in an abusive relationship, and my partner then tried to kill me a few times,
Wow.
and it was in this moment where I decided to run away from the house, and I spent my couple of nights in the night buses in London sleeping because I just didn't want to go home. I was scared that now he'll be even more angry that I ran away.
Yes.
And when I look back and I think, what was that?
Yeah.
How could I have, gone through that? Or how could I have allowed myself, and I realized that what was different is how much I wasn't claiming my fierce feminine, as you say, like how I wasn't standing up for myself. So it's very prevalent.
Absolutely. There's no way we can learn to stand our ground unless we're standing our ground. There's no way we can learn to be empowered unless we are being empowered. These great gifts can't come unless the experience is absolutely genuine. And so many of us, not just ladies, but so many of us are taken to the very edge of our capacity.
Yeah.
But when that happens, I'm a true believer that something very fabulous is just around the corner. A real and genuine sacred gift.
But how would you advise, like, let's say the women listening to our conversation, what would you suggest when somebody is going through such scenario where she can feel that, all right, this is not correct, this is not true, and because we always feel, as you say, we always have this inner eye and ear. It's just that we don't stand up and make it obvious.
Yes.
So what would you suggest? Like, where can she take that first step, or what should? Because it's really hard to imagine that this is a gift in this moment.
The first step, let's just get really practical and grounded. The first step is leave. It really is. That goes across the board. The first step is leave. Yes, this is real. Yes, this is happening. And yes, this is going to get worse. So leave immediately. And then there will be an aftermath. There will be a continuation, because obviously things don't just go away. So once you have left, that is the beginning of your empowering process. So leaving is the turning point. Leaving is the switch of energy. Okay, I am now choosing to love myself more than I love him or her or the relationship. Okay, now it's me time. But it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be honest, and it's going to be real, and it's going to be yours at the end of the day. But please, beloved ladies or men listening in, don't say to yourself, it's going to get better if only I love him or her more, or you're going to heal him, or you're going to save him or her. No. Step one, leave.
Yeah, and there is also a component of, allowing that person to be on their soul's journey, whatever they're here to do, because often we think we can change them somehow. Because that's what where I was coming from in my previous relationship.
Same here. Save him, love him enough.
Yeah, give more love. They will change. No, it didn't happen. And I'm so glad. Now I can look back and say, as you said, that it's a sacred gift. But being in that moment, it is going to be hard.
Yes.
But we have to stand up for ourselves.
That's right.
So when you say predators, I'm really curious about your definition of what are the various aspects in which all forms they show up in today's world, especially for us women.
Well, the predators I have noticed it's mostly the spiritual communities, because that's the only community I'm in. I'm not in the financial community, I'm not in the educational community, so I'm noticing this in the spiritual community. As us ladies awaken, there is a very exuberant energy that starts to absolutely be within us every single day. Now, this energy is very sexual, it's very sensual, it's very creative, it's spiritual, it's catalyzing, it's nourishing, it's healing. So it's got many, many attractive forces, and it's very magnetic. I'm sure you've noticed that when a lady has this radiance, even you'll be looking at her.
Yeah.
Because you can't help it, it's just beauty. Now, that energy can be coerced and manipulated to feed the agenda of someone who may not genuinely love you, but is very interested in that energy, because it's going to give him or her creative ideas. It's going to give him or her more vitality and actual life force throughout the day. It's going to give him or her an opening to some sort of spiritual epiphany. And that's what I mean by predators. And they will seek out those ladies to literally usurp that creative, sexual, radiant energy for the betterment of themselves. Not the twosome, not her, but the other, and the other alone. And of course, the lady will be told all sorts of fabulous stories that she's chosen, she's special, she's gifted. The list is endless. But at the end of the day, once the predator has finished feeding, she will be discarded and another one brought in. And you may have noticed that with spiritual teachers, they just seem to have this endless flow of ladies as their lovers, as their companions. And that is what I want to draw attention to the ladies on the spiritual path. There is another side to this community, and it is most unsavory.
Yeah.
And it will damage the women, and it will set them back a few steps. And that angers me, because when someone's on the spiritual path, that is a person at their most humble, their most vulnerable. And the teacher is there to serve that person, not for them to serve the teacher.
Yeah.
No, that's the wrong way around. You must serve that person's longing for spiritual, authentic spiritual connection. And if you play with that in any way, let it be on your hands.
This is so prevalent in the tantric community as well. I have heard so many of my friends and colleagues as well, even clients, talking about their experiences, similar experiences, when they go seeking some kind of healing, and and then they experience this kind of like a violation of boundary, and that leaves them even feeling worse, because it makes them think that they were doing something wrong, not the teacher itself. So it's a deeper wound that they come back with.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do believe that the era of teachers is over. I feel what's going to happen now is we will enter a circle, and it really will be a circle of equals.
Yes.
And the healing and the opening and the awakening happens together, everyone on the same plateau. No one is going to assume betterment or entitlement in any way. And then that sort of stuff, that sort of malpractice will come to an end.
This is why I love the concept of sister circles, because there is no leader, and we each heal by healing each other, and it's a collective process, and such a beautiful unfolding when women gather in circles.
Yes, yes. Amen to that.
Yes. So I'm curious about, you talk about the Magdalene lineage as well, and you talk about how it is very prevalent at this time as well, that we own that within ourselves, that the consciousness, the feminine Christ consciousness. And I'm curious if that is something that we can use to become more discerning of our sensual and sexual energy.
Oh, yes. I believe absolutely Mary Magdalene would have definitely have had endless initiations of this caliber.
Yeah.
She, in my heart, she was a very sexual, very sensual, but very strong and courageous woman. And she was with her power. She was with her outspokenness. She was with her sexuality. She didn't try to hide what she was. She was fully present. And of course, she would have had a heck of a lot of judgment, a heck of a lot of criticism and fears and threats.
Until today.
Absolutely. It's 2,000 years old.
Yeah.
We're still a little bit nervous when we mention the name Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
Yes, she is absolutely a pioneer and definitely a quality to call on in these times of needing desperately to have that discerning quality and be open. So we're not ashamed of our beauty. We're not ashamed of our sensuality. We're not ashamed of our creativity. But our inner ears and our inner eyes are absolutely open and aware and navigating that psychic space 24/7.
So for some of the women listening, what would you suggest in terms of practical steps for them to start embodying, to live in their power, as their feminine power, in their beauty, in their sensuality, sexuality, and feeling safe?
I would say one of the first steps is, as a lady starts her sacred sexual awakening, she picks up her copy of a womb book, and she begins to open and explore and clear her past, and there's a great energy, a great gusto to do this journey. I say to that lady, remember to work in exactly the same ferocious way with your voice, with your mouth, knowing that the mouth is so very similar to the yoni. The tongue is so very similar to the lingam. This is a very erogenous zone. What passes through it and out of it is just as important as the sexual fluids. So check and check again. The quality of your words, the clarity of your words. Are you holding a secret? Are you not saying something that absolutely needs to be said? And just to treat the mouth and the voice with the same impeccable desire to awaken as we would the sexual region as well. And that might mean, for me, that meant slowing down my speech.
Yes.
Slowing it down, hand-picking the words, making sure my womb and heart was linked to the voice so that there's energy behind what I'm saying. Making sure my yes was a real yes. And if it was a don't know, that was still classified as a no.
Mm-hmm.
And a no was also a no. So I would only ever move with full bodily yeses. If I had a don't know, I would pause and absolutely not push myself forward until a genuine yes came. And of course, if it was a no, which is rather difficult to say, I made sure I said it.
This is very beautiful, using our mouth as also the representation of the yoni in a similar way. Very beautifully said. How would one gather this courage? Let's talk about courage to be discerning, because yes, it's all, we can think about all these thoughts and we can feel, but acting on it is the problem for many of us women.
I would say if you made a prayer to say, I wish to develop and deepen my discernment, I believe it would only be a matter of days before life presented an opportunity
Always.
for you to actually make this a real live situation. What I have done, because at the beginning, I didn't have enough energy inside of me to stand up for myself in the way I wanted to stand up for myself. So what I did is I inspired myself with what I call sorrows of the world. For me, sorrows of the world are things like canned hunting, the dairy industry, the meat industry, any form of cruelty to animals, and swiftly followed by any form of abuse to this beautiful planet Earth. So I made sure I had stories inside of me that broke my heart, that made me realize that this place is also quite unjust and terrible things are happening. So when it was my chance to realize something was happening to me at that level, an abuse, now I've got backup. Now I've got 101 reasons why to stand my ground and fight for something good. But at the beginning, I didn't have enough self-love to do that for myself. I needed inspiration. I needed feeding, more reasons why to stand up. And for me, it was the animals, the defenseless ones, the ones who don't have a voice. And any breach of innocence drives me wild. So I draw on that inspiration, when I have to go from 0 to 10.
Yeah, and we can find so many examples like that. It's just not only animals, but as you said, the land itself and the sea creatures and so many things.
And children and family.
Children, exactly. Human beings. Yeah.
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 So find some material that can really actually get your emotions aroused and inflamed.
I feel personally what we are entering is a journey of the dark feminine. And we all are called, like, this is the thing that we have been resisting. We've been numbing ourselves and medicating ourselves and ignoring this part, but it's time and there is no escape, so we better face it.
Absolutely. I used to have fantasies that the Black Madonna or Kali, Kali would make the earth do something. You know, Kali would bring a volcano, or Kali would bring an earthquake. Kali would make sure the bad people got involved in some sort of natural disaster. That's not going to happen. Kali is going to use her sons and daughters. Kali is going to use regular human beings to do her correcting work. She's going to jump right into us.
Yeah.
We're going to start speaking and acting in outrageous ways, because that is how this sacred feminine becomes real. It's not the time for Kuan Yin. It's not the time for Mother Mary. It's the time for the Black Madonna and Kali. Because we are 2 minutes to midnight, and we've got to make a massive and drastic change.
And we all are feeling that in our bellies. You know, there is this fire rising, and we're just scared to just bring it to the mouth.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm curious, on a practical day, let's say, you know, most of the women are busy with, you know, juggling with different roles. What would you suggest to enhance their fierce feminine? What can they do on a daily basis? Or what do you do that somebody can learn from?
Well, one of my great mentors is Andrew Harvey. So he's really helped set me on fire. He talks about networks of grace. So networks of grace are a little bunch of friends where you get together regularly and you talk and you share how you're feeling as you're becoming the sacred feminine. So when you say yes to the sacred feminine, you will be given a cause. You will be given something to get behind and start, you know, representing. It's not about activism, and it's not about awareness. It's much more catalyzing and current than that. Like at the moment, we've seen Me Too, with the Me Too campaign. A couple of months ago, lots of spiritual teachers came into awareness of malpractice and abuse. So it's things like that. It's being willing and brave to speak up and speak out in the moment. Now, I have noticed that when you get behind one of her sacred causes, and you actually really present yourself as a vessel and a vehicle to become her voice and her action, you get replenished with an incredible natural energy. Within moments of you taking a step, she takes a step. So there is this wonderful figure of eight. You keep making these little leaps of faith, wondering, oh my God, I can't possibly do this, but you do it anyway. And then suddenly the next day, whoosh, a big load of energy comes in. And again, it's replenishing, but you're not taken to the level that you were. You're taking beyond. So it's like she is feeding you. Something is making you more and more. And so you have to be precious with that energy, hence the networks of grace. Make sure you have some nearest and dearest around you who won't say, oh, what you're doing is ridiculous, it's a waste of time, nothing's ever going to change, blah, blah, blah. You want motivational, loving, encouraging people.
Non-judgmental.
Yes, at your back. And you just support each other. So the question to ask yourself is, who are you going to go on this fierce feminine journey with? What friends can you count on to be uplifting and supportive? And of course, what faculty of society will you be drawn into where you can create a fabulous and long overdue scene? What Pandora's box lid are you going to lift?
Yeah, and we got to get curious about it.
Yes. It's not about creating a storm just for the sake of it. It's about tackling something that is proven and repeatedly out of alignment. You know, when you just know something is wrong, it's just wrong. It's been happening for years that way, and it's just wrong. It's those things, addressing those things.
Yeah. So I'm curious to know about the free gift that you mentioned you will be giving to the women watching, which is one of your transmissions. Could you say something about it, please?
Yes, it's the fierce feminine transmission. So if you're still scratching your head going, I'm not quite sure what she's talking about, then this transmission is a spoken journey into your own self, where you will meet that energy, the quality of the fierce feminine, how she appears and sounds to you on your inside. Because there is a transmission, a unique transmission for us all. She's got something up her sleeve for us all. We've all agreed, especially if you're feeling the attraction towards this, we've all agreed to take on a little bite of her cake and to deliver a certain thing out into the world. And this transmission will take you to that place that remembers. And
Yes.
you will come into contact with that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for your generosity, for sharing this link. I'm going to put that link below the interview so the women watching can get curious and experience for themselves this fierce feminine. And before we close today, a question that I've been asking every single teacher in this online temple space is something about the rising feminine. So what does rising feminine mean to you in a line or two, if you can say, in this given time?
For me, rising actually means a feminine energy that was once the presence of planet Earth. So its borders was the surface of the Earth. You know, I am planet Earth. I am Mother Gaia. For some reason, she is coming up and into human form. And that is what I feel is the rising of the sacred feminine. We are becoming representatives of this natural environment and all of its inhabitants, seen and unseen. Those of us on the surface, those of us under the surface, those of us who fly around and swim around. We are becoming the spokesperson and caretaker of this world.
Yes, that's beautiful. And it's all a mirror again. What is happening inside of us as human beings is what is happening in planet Earth. You know, it's so relevant. Thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you so much for your presence and talking about this fierce feminine and being the real embodiment of how you speak. I really love listening to you because you go with grace and softness, with conviction. And I really loved how you defined what we should be careful with while we are speaking in and out of your tongue and mouth. Like, really interesting topic. And I'm sure that the women watching will take these tips on board and start cultivating their fierce feminine.
Thank you so much, Janita, and lots of beautiful blessings and encouragement to all the listeners and watchers. And, you know, really hope this online temple just absolutely flourishes. You hold a beautiful, beautiful space. Thank you.
Thank you.